the least competent person, the most obviously unqualified person, becomes the leader of everybody else.
Well, I mean, think about this. Do a little thought experiment. All the people you just mentioned, and we'll throw in Biden, we'll throw in Kamala Harris as well. Would you hire them to coach your small town high school football team?
No.
And if the answer is no, if you literally start laughing, right? If you said Feinstein or Fetterman or even Biden or Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, any of these people, if you said, I would like them to coach our high school football team, you would be laughed out of the small town you lived in. So if they cannot raise to that level, then maybe they shouldn't be running the government.
But I think they're running the government because of their deficiencies. So if you just took a cross-section of 10,000 people from the phone book, assuming phone books still exist, which they don't, but it's a cross-section of the population, you would get some high-aptitude people, some low-aptitude people. This is not a representative sample. Like the U.S. Senate, for example, the White House, it's disproportionately stupid and crazy. Like we're selecting bad people on purpose.
Well, it does dovetail nicely into the sort of intersectionality and all the woke stuff and all the affirmative action hires. But could it go any other way? I mean, if your criteria for hiring a football coach was we need the gayest, we need the darkest, we need the ones who cross-dress and transgender, how would that football team's record be at the end of 3 years of playing? I mean, how else could this go?
Well, maybe you've hit upon a solution to the current crisis in our former meritocracy where Congress passes a law forcing the NBA and the NFL to abide by the same hiring standards they're imposing on, say, J.P. Morgan and Citibank and everybody else. Why not do that? And we can all watch what happens when you abandon the meritocracy.
Well, it would be the greatest experiment ever, and I think it would be very informative to a lot of people. I think if you said we're going to do a basketball team that we're going to hire by the same standards that the federal government hires in terms of intersectionality and race and everything else, and then you watched a bunch of guys bounce the ball off of their foreheads and into the first row and score no points, and each game would end in a tie 0-0, then maybe Americans would take a look at the horrible sloppy play on the court and say, we don't want this in our government. The problem is we can't do the math. We're not doing the math. The second Joe Biden said, I'm going to run with a vice president who's female and black and other, people should have been outraged by that. That's an insane statement. It's a racist statement. It's an insulting statement to everyone who's in the country. I told you when I was on your show a couple of years ago, I said Joe Biden is essentially a drunken airline pilot, and we're all in the passenger seats. That's insane, and it seems like an extreme analogy, but is it that much different?
Well, it was actually foreshadowing of what we're seeing in America's airports now with the new near miss every week, thanks to the equity hiring standards now being imposed on the airlines. So you called that early.